Yeah, like third grade, Mr. Smith was just too hot to ignore. Like, why should I be ashamed of that? I mean, I grew up in a small town, Arkansas, so the bigotry was just obvious, which was weird and ironic, but kind of helpful for my future, you know? Like, I grew up, if you can remember, Matthew Shepard, who was beaten and killed in the U.S. for being gay. Like, that's the era where I grew up, and every show that I watched and every film that I saw, like, if you were openly gay, you either died of AIDS or you're out clubbing. There was no like in between, you know? Like, I think I saw one episode of Queer as Folk, and it's like, I don't know that world. But, yeah, I would hear things in church all the time, like Matthew Shepard deserved it, and my parents didn't want me to end up like Matthew Shepard if ever it came out, and was I was outed against my own will. I was actually in my first semester of college, and someone that I knew at the time, he'd raped me, and he confessed to me that he'd also raped a 14-year-old boy right after me. So I told some friends what he'd done, and he found that out. So he called my parents and said, well, you know, Garrett's gay. And my dad took me into his bedroom, and I told him, Dad, I think I'm gay. And he said, well, you know, I've talked to a few preachers, and there's only one way forward here. You go to conversion therapy, or you won't see your family again. And this was harder to get into than it was to get into college. It was 2 letters of recommendation, asked if you ever done, you know, used a Ouija board, done yoga. They believe all these things were sinful, and they want to make sure that we are all, you know, good Christians who believe the same thing. And this was 6 months of sitting across from someone, and after each session they would say, well, you know, God hates that, and God doesn't want you to be that way, and here's a Bible verse to fix it. We had to sit across from a chair and pretend that our invisible Father was sitting there, and we were asked to yell at that Father and say, I hate you. And I said, well, I don't hate my Father. I just feel very disappointed. And then they said, well, we know what you're actually feeling, and you're not trying hard enough. And I thought that these people who are trying to show me what compassion is and be good Christians are asking me to hate my Father, which it suddenly felt, you know, insane, because hate to me felt like the opposite of compassion, and by that point, I already read 1984. So my mom realized how insane this all was, and we were in the car, and she looks at me in the eye and says, Garrett, are you gonna kill yourself? Very direct and calm, by the way. And I said yes, thinking that's the answer to get me out of there, and at the same time I did. So it was at that moment when she realized it was better to have a gay son than a dead one. So she took me out, and I went to college right after that again, and I was studying, you know, Darwin for the first time because no one allowed me to even know what evolution was. So I always say that you don't have to be in conversion therapy to be in conversion therapy, you know? You just grow up in these small towns where people tell you how to stand, they tell you to act, and they shame you for your sissy. But I still have my faith and a very personal relationship with God, and I don't know what God looks like, whether it's a he, she, or they, but I really hope it's a they. But I pray because I'm grateful for something. It's important for you to say aloud what you're grateful for.